Welcome to another episode of the Antifragility Reframe podcast, where struggles become strength and stress fuels growth. I'm Dr. Frank L. Douglas, your host, and my guest today is Ms. Kelly Tuttle. She is a retired neurology nurse practitioner and an award-winning author. Her book, and we will hear some of her story that is captured in her book. The book is entitled After the Crash: How to Keep Your Job, to Stay in School, and to Live Life After a Brain Injury. Ms. Tuttle, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to you, Dr. Douglas.
Well, I think you have so much really to share with our audience. So let's launch right into it. To tell us a bit about the brain injury, how did that happen? And let's get into the types of things that you did to become anti-fragile.
So, my story starts with a thunderous clap of metal and a shattering of glass. I was driving home from work, and another car pulled in front of me on a rural road, and I collided with that car. I thought after the car accident, it looked pretty bad, but I'd shake it off and get back to life. And I went to work the next day and I worked with registered nurses and nurse practitioners who noticed right away there was something wrong. I was having difficulty with my speech and I just wasn't acting right. So they implored upon me to see my general doctor the next day, which I did. And I was diagnosed with a concussion and taken off work for 2 weeks. And I left thinking I would be fine. And after 2 weeks, I went back to work, even though I had terrible symptoms. I had whiplash, headaches, fatigue, irritability, um, coordination difficulties. I just pushed and pushed and pushed until about 2 or 3 months later, I fell asleep at the wheel. And because of the neuro fatigue. And I fortunately was able to wake up, slam on the brake, and not have my car ram into a tree. And this is how well my brain was working. I decided that I would just take a nap on the side of the road between work and home and then drive home the rest of the way safely. I had a hour plus commute one way. And fortunately, shortly thereafter, I had a lunch with a colleague who was a neurology nurse practitioner at the time, and I was a cardiology nurse practitioner before I became the before I went into neurology. And she was curious about my recovery, and I mentioned falling asleep at the wheel, and she said, "No, that's not okay," and directed me to see a physical medicine and rehab doctor, also known as physiatrist. And once danced through several hoops, I got the referral to see the PMR doctor. And after that, I got on to the right road of recovery, seeing the speech therapist and neurotherapy and so forth. And I was taken off work at that time for 3 months. And the 2 weeks building up to returning to work, I was freaking out because I didn't know what I needed to support my brain to take care of my patients safely. And when I decided to write my book, I wanted to create a spot where people who had like a mild traumatic brain injury who were returning to work could go to for quick, easy strategies and compensatory tools that they could use to go back to work. I also made it on Audible so it was accessible to brain injury survivors who were struggling to read, and that was me. I had difficulty with cognitive stamina, screen tolerance, and reading and memory, and I could only read 5 to 10 minutes early into my recovery. And so from my book, then it just bloomed from there. And now I create content to educate others about brain injury and being able to return to work, get those cognitive connections reconnected, and then I have my podcast also.
Well,
the
when you
mindful
had
return.
good, when you had your injury initially, you had a lot of denial, uh,
Yes.
and
Well,
even
I would say it was I would say it was lack of self-awareness, which is common after a brain injury. And I did lose my self-awareness and I lost uh, the ability to understand consequences to action. And I realized that a few months later, I think it was 3 to 6 months, I can't remember. I was putting laundry away and I was thinking of a conversation I was having with a friend. And I got this really strange feeling in my chest. And so I sat down and I analyzed it and I realized it was regret. And then I realized I had not been feeling regret, this feeling for a long time, that it was coming back. And it was regret from the conversation I had. I'd said things I would normally not have said. And it was kind of a sad situation, but I was also excited because I was like, if my uh, self-awareness and my sense of regret with consequences to actions could be healed in my brain, that meant other parts in my brain would also heal with time.
Mhm, mhm. So tell me a little bit more about the lack of understanding consequences of actions after a brain injury. As you counsel others with brain injuries, what are the types of things you advise them to look out for that really have to do with not connecting consequences with actions?
Well, first, I would recommend a change in practice for general practitioners taking care of patients with concussions. So my experience is you go and you see your doctor and they say, if you're not better, let me know in 2 to 4 weeks. Well, I don't think that someone who has a brain injury should be trusted to be able to do that or to know that they need to contact the doctor. Just like me falling asleep at the wheel. I didn't think of letting my doctor know. That's really important for a doctor to know. And so I would recommend anybody who has a brain injury or a stroke um, that they are followed up in 2 weeks and checked on, and then followed up in a month, and then in 3 months, and then in 6 months to a year, because just to make sure they don't fall through the cracks, that you're not missing something on that patient.
Now, when you experience regret, and you said this was important to you because it was a signal that your brain was healing. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why did you make that connection?
That is a really good question. I don't know if it was because of my background and that I had been trying to read about the brain and how to support its healing and the consequences of brain injury. And that might be why I put that together. I was very hypersensitive to noting any improvements and anything that worsened my symptoms and worsened my neural fatigue and impaired my cognitive ability. I was journaling and I was just journaling, writing my feelings, my symptoms, how the day went, how I planned my day, how it ended up going. I was doing a lot of self-monitoring and not knowing that that was important piece of my recovery at the time.
One of
I
the
mean,
things we talk about, when faced with a challenge and you had a severe challenge, even though initially you didn't recognize it, but then became very clear, is having a growth outcome mindset is one of the important things. And as your brain healed itself and regrew, I'll just put it that way, as the neurons regroup, you yourself also had a growth mindset. How did you grow from that, which led you into changing from cardiology to neurology and being a nurse practitioner? It also led you to thinking about how can you share this so that what you have benefited can benefit many others. So tell us some more about how the journaling helped, what made you decide to write the book, and what are some of the lessons you can share with us?
So, one of the difficulties with a brain injury or any chronic illness or sudden traumatic experience is the grieving. You have to go through the
The
grieving
grieving state.
process. Yes.
Mhm.
And um, what I've seen with other survivors is some people go through it and they move forward, and others seem to get stuck.
Mhm.
And fortunately, I don't know where this thinking process came from, Dr. Douglas. No one recommended it to me, but I intuitively went out to my outside to do my journaling. And I was thinking that I need to become comfortable with the deficits I had because I didn't think they were going to go away anytime soon. And so I decided to write on a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. And on the left side, I put everything I was passionate about and all my goals and things I loved on the left side before my brain injury. And on the right side, I wrote all the things I felt that I gained and my new passions and goals. And when I went down the list, on the right side, I started checking off stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in going back to school to become a lawyer. So I'm going to cross that out. It's okay to let that go. I'm not interested in being in a leadership position for my profession at this time. So I'm going to cross that off and let it go. But then when I looked at the right, I saw that I was more mindful. I had more gratitude. I was more intentional in decisions on how I utilized my time and energy. And I was appreciating more deeply my family, my friends, and my home. And when I compared the two, I liked who I was becoming, and I embraced that person, and that helped me move forward. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't mean to gaslight your listeners, that I let go of my old person and that I'm not still sad, that I don't have the energy to do the things that I used to do. But I take it with me. It's still a part of me, but it doesn't hold me back. It's just a part of who I am.
I really love that picture because, one of the things we talk about is resilience uh, helps you to bounce back, that you're bouncing back to your former self. Being anti-fragile helps you to bounce forward. So that stress makes you stronger and helps you to look forward. So having this list of things of here's what you loved and what you did in the past, and here are the things that now you are discovering that you like, you begin to have that forward look and begin to think about now, here are the things that now can make me stronger. And I do like that as a way to deal with the challenge and deal with stress. Because so often when we have challenge and stress, we are trying to maintain the past when indeed there's an opportunity to let go of some of those things and embrace some new paths. Ms. Tuttle, thank you very much. This has been really very helpful. And I look forward actually to reading your book. I have not seen it as yet, but I will get it and read it.